Welcome to the stage, Bank of Ireland's principal architect, Ronan Hughes.
Hi everybody, thanks very much for the time and opportunity. I'd like to thank Sonny and Aptio and the TBM Council for allowing us to come here and share our story with you today. I know it's late in the morning session after the night before, so I don't want to keep anybody too long. I just wanted to share a part of our story, the learnings that we've had along the way, and I know nobody wants to be sitting there listening to somebody who looks like they've failed their Game of Thrones audition and ended up settling for a career in IT. So we'll try and keep this much more of a conversation. And the pack that I'm going to share with you was prepared a long time ago and updated for the conference. But what I've learned in the last few days in particular has meant that a lot of this content will take a different spin. I want to try and put a different sort of focus on the conversation that we'll have as a result of that. So I wanted to start off by addressing the elephant in the room. So over the last 2 days, there's been a friendly competition around who's the oldest established company to partake in the conference. And I think at the minute, Lisa from Takeda Pharmaceuticals currently in the lead. I wanted to put a couple of facts out there from a Bank of Ireland perspective to plead our case. So Bank of Ireland was formed on the 5th of April, 1783. To put that into context, that was 5 months to the day before the signing of the Treaty of Paris by Benjamin Franklin and John Adams, which created the United States of America as officially a country recognized internationally. And I'd like to thank that those merchants in Dublin got George III so drunk that he was happy enough to give America away at that point. And if we've learned anything from Hamilton the musical, it's that George III was as mad as a box of frogs, so that's helpful. Just to hammer that point home, because I know Takeda still have the lead in us by about 2 years on that front. One of the key buildings in Bank of Ireland is our central office in Dublin, which is a place called College Green. It's the House of Lords in Dublin. It was formed in 1297. It was the first seat of Parliament in Ireland. And the current building, the original one was burnt down. The current building was built in 1780 and was then used as the blueprint and inspiration for the US Capitol building. So We've owned that since 1800, and I'm having a team meeting in it next week where we're all going to have a party, which is ironic given it was the seat of British rule in Ireland for 800 years. So to move on then, what I wanted to do today was to share our journey about coming on board with Apptio, what we've learned in the process and how we're still on that journey. So I wanted to start with who are Bank of Ireland, apart from those interesting little tidbits. Bank of Ireland is a full service bank. We're part of the CMA 9 largest retail banks in the UK. We operate in the UK, Ireland, Spain, France, and the US. So we've got a presence in New York. We go across retail, corporate, markets and treasury, wealth management, and international finance. One of the problems that presents with us is that whilst we don't have the size or scale of a tier 1 bank, we certainly have all of the problems and complexity that goes along with it. So as a result of that, we have a large and complex IT estate to support all of those features and functions. It's been around for a long while. And prior to Apptio, we had proprietary approaches to assessing and managing costs, planning, tracking of budgets and actuals, and also identification of technology lifecycle management and technical debt. It was neither simple nor accurate. So as part of what we're discussing today, what did we do before Apptio and APM? Well, I think Sonny said it best when he did the keynote speech on Monday morning when he said Apptio was there to enable a much more objective conversation. Enabled through data, presenting facts and figures. It removed that subjective element from the debate to become much less emotive. I'm not saying emotions aren't still involved, they definitely are. But it made it a much more tangible process for people to feed into and take output from, which has been hugely helpful. In terms of why we ended up going with Apptio, we had a debate around what the best approaches were. Our CIO, who had just joined the organization at the time, had experience with Apptio previously, and another organization said, I think these are guys are good, go and look at them. I said, well, I'm not going to take your word for it, I'm going to look at everybody. So we engaged Gartner and Forrester, we did a whole beauty parade of potential solutions, and the Apptio guys came out and said, we can do a proof of concept in 4 weeks that will give you a baseline total cost of ownership. And I went, yeah, of course you can. We're quite cynical in Ireland, I don't know if you'd picked that up. They came in, they did it, they delivered it in 4 weeks and it worked. And at that point we were like, okay, put your money where your mouth is, let's do it. The problem was at that point, Apptio were much more prepared for this than we were. So one of the analogies I would use for Apptio is like it's a really good mirror. It shines the light back on you. And in this case, it was a very large mirror and there's a giant spotlight as well. And they asked us lots of questions we didn't have answers to, which was really good because Bank of Ireland had just come through the end of a 5-year transformation program, which was huge. Massively beneficial, loads of learnings from it. It was also eye-wateringly expensive. And the last thing we wanted to do was to spend more money. We wanted to save money. So in fairness, Apptio had given us an idea of what we could achieve in that space. And as a result of that, what we wanted to do is move ahead with that journey. So wanted to talk about the planned objectives and outcomes versus what actually happened, the Apptio experience and journey, and the value of Apptio and application portfolio management. So one of the reasons we looked at Apptio was at the end of that transformation program, we developed a new IT strategy, and the cornerstone of that was application portfolio management. That was one of the key elements we needed to deliver where we were going as a bank. And that was broken down into these 3 pillars of operational management, lifecycle management, and application governance. All of those are standard industry definitions for this, so I'm not going to dwell on this. But that was what took us on this journey to begin with. The 2 points at the bottom, these are the things that we hope to achieve from this. That's what everybody hopes to achieve from these kinds of things. There's nobody who doesn't want to maximize value from investment, etc. Those are all standard things. One of the points I would make here is around it being actively managed. One of the things that we have seen, and talking to some other people who've been on the journey as well, you deploy Apptio, you get massive benefits at the beginning. Then once you've sort of eked all of the low-hanging fruit out of the organization, you're left with basically, well, why are we still paying for this? And then if you go off that journey, what you'll find is in 3 years' time, you need Apptio again because all of those bad habits have crept back in because you had no way to actively manage it. So those are one of the things to look out for as well. In terms of the actual objectives and outcomes, we had broken our application portfolio management down into these 10 main areas. And we had thought Apptio can definitely help us with a few of these, and the 2 primary ones being data-driven decisions and heritage elimination. I want to focus on the heritage elimination part as opposed to legacy. We defined the difference between legacy and heritage. Legacy are things that are on the estate that you don't want to be there anymore. They're a risk. You need to get rid of them. You need to move to something else. Heritage are things that have been on the estate for a very long time, but they're still great. They work really well. We're not going to be getting rid of our mainframe anytime soon. So instead of classifying that as legacy, it's heritage. We will have to get rid of it at some point, but it's not going to happen today or tomorrow. And whilst we might be engaged in some elements of what most people would classify as software archaeology in that space as opposed to software development, it works, it's secure, it's not getting hacked anytime soon, and it's very efficient. So that's where we began. What we then decided to do was these were the 5 main points within that strategy that we thought Apptio, once we had engaged with them and understood what it could do, that's where we're going to get value. So we're looking at portfolio and investment strategy, cost and efficiency management. So that's the total cost of ownership at a horizontal and vertical level. Our transformation roadmaps. So we've just finished one. We have to keep building. Change doesn't stop. It's continual. We have our sourcing strategy as well. How does it help us with our vendors? What are we spending? Where are we spending the money on? What value are we getting it for? And our technology strategy in general in terms of the directions we're going in. So that was our aim once we had established it, said we can definitely achieve in these 5. As a result of that, what actually happened is the other 5 all got enabled by this as well. We weren't expecting for that, and thankfully, we didn't have to pay any extra for it, so that's brilliant from our perspective. And one of the purposes of this was to try and sort of highlight to Sonny and the guys from an Apptio perspective, you might be underselling yourselves a bit, You've helped us enable things we didn't think we would be able to, and we didn't have to pay you for it, so that's always a win in our book. So things like business strategy, enterprise capabilities, risk management, our organizational strategy, and capacity and demand were a huge bonus to us in terms of what we were able to do in that space. The Apptio experience we planned out these 4 pillars, the 4-stage approach we were going to do. One of the things I wanted to say here is this worked for us. A version of this will work for most people, doesn't need to be that. It could be something different, unique to you guys and where you are in your journey as well. And for anybody who's more advanced in their Apptio journey than we are, they will understand, they'll look at this and say, yeah, well, it was slightly different to that, but we understand where we are. What I would normally do and what I was preparing for is I was expecting this to be a much smaller venue. I would normally do like a Q&A at the end of this and have an energized debate around how that would work. I don't think the scale and logistics of this particular venue would allow for that. So I will be hanging around afterwards. If you see me, feel free to come up and have a chat. It's great to share and learn, and that's what I've been doing for the last 2 days, and it's been a hugely beneficial experience. One thing I would say is that a lot of this is there to provoke thought and debate. So I know we've had a couple of great keynote speakers on the stage. We had Duncan Wardle on Monday, we had Laszlo last night at the awards ceremony, and an awful lot of what they said you could identify with and agree with. It was brilliant. A lot of it was thought-provoking, some of it was objectively wrong, which I think was there to try and provoke that thought and debate. So I appreciate the point that Duncan was making, but the reality is he's created a group of ride or die Black & Decker fans for the rest of their lives. So I don't think that's what he intended to achieve, but that's what he set out to do, and he did that. And whilst I appreciate the points that he was making, I think if I fly to Frankfurt next month and go in and introduce myself to the European Central Bank as the Chief Happiness Officer for Bank of Ireland, I'll probably be looking for a new job or a drug test. So we're not quite there yet. But in fairness, the reason for telling that story is, having spoken to a lot of people who are much more advanced on their journey than Bank of Ireland are, you know, I can take a lot of learnings from that, but we're not there yet. I can't go in and say, right, here's what we should be doing in terms of what John Deere have accomplished. Going, yeah, you've been on that journey an awful lot longer, so let's just take our time and be patient in that respect. One of the points I wanted to say again to try and emphasize this, Bank of Ireland have a large and complex estate, which we tried to simplify in a very simple management cartoon, which is the term we use internally when you try and take like topographical diagrams of architecture and technology and data and business processes and map them all into one pretty picture that, you know, you put in front of a board member and they'll not go, what the hell is that? So this is our attempt at trying to summarize that. We identified some principles. This is what our original aim was, to try and activate through Aptio. This is what we actually ended up achieving. So we managed to get an awful lot more out of it than we had, to the extent that we were so successful, we actually had to hit the pause button. So what we managed to achieve, and I'm out of time, so I'll try and wrap this up quickly, is that we looked at our application portfolio, heritage elimination, a rationalization of our application estate listings. We were able to go from over 1,900 applications listed in our estate to 758. That was quite a dramatic improvement. Part of the reason for that is because a lot of these weren't applications. Our CMDB had fallen by the wayside during that transformation program. A lot of this was just tidy up and good housekeeping. Aptio enabled that by saying we were able to easily look at the data and go, well, there's a question mark around those, so why is that number that? And as a result of that, we were able to very quickly rationalize that. However, the reduction of over 15% of applications from our state, those were applications that were live, had software, hardware, licenses, contracts, or support against them. They're now gone. And we've achieved that just this year. We've also identified cost-saving initiatives for 2023 and 2024 off the back of that, which is going to keep me very busy for a while. We had over 30 licenses and vendor agreements which could be terminated after the estate rationalization. We banked more than 1.4 million, and that's quite a conservative number in terms of what was achieved, just off the first turn of the wheel on the total cost of ownership. And some of the application of insights, the one point I wanted to leave you with was, there are a number of intangible benefits that we got from an Aptio perspective that weren't supposed to be there, not things that we thought about along the way. Some examples of those were, we managed to clear up an awful lot of dependency on SME insight and time. So where we didn't have Aptio before, or TBM, you would normally go to a group of SMEs who understood the estate, ask them lots of questions, they'd have to go off and do work and present you with the answers. And one of our heads of finance in the technology area, the best compliment I got was that since we deployed the first TCO, her phone stopped ringing and she was able to do her job. People stopped asking for all of those same questions that they would get hit with requests every 6 weeks. Massive advantage there. We've improved our operational risk by knowing and understanding older parts of the estate and having a plan in place for how and why they'll be deleted, and if not, why not, and what the costs are associated with those. And ironically, we also, through that rationalization, managed to hit a figure whereby a lot of our support contracts with third parties, we had reduced so much that we were able to go back and renegotiate off the back that we had employed you to support this number of applications. They no longer exist. What are you going to do for us in that space? So it's been very helpful in that space. So we were actually told, stop what you're doing, stop concentrating and improving that, gather all these savings up, get them banked, and then go back and look at it again. So we're now back at our second iteration of that to try and improve that and build on it going forward. So based on that, I just wanted to leave you guys with that as an indication of our story to date. Hopefully it will continue. I know we got pipped at the post last night by National Grid, who are very worthy winners in the business optimization category, and congratulations to Sunil and the guys. I'm very happy about that because they've been blazing a path which we're happy to follow, and they're based in London, so it's an easy phone call away to try and find out what would you do if. So it's great to have that support and community across the group from an Aptio perspective as well. It's been great for me to come the whole way from Dublin, so I'll be starting my pilgrimage back to the north of Ireland later on today, and I'll hopefully arrive there before Christmas. It's been great to be in Austin. I haven't managed to get to any live music at all, despite being a musician for about 25 years, which has galled me, so I'm going to have to come back. Thank you for your time and patience.